with Ari, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week, we're on episode 250, and we're asking, Would You Rather? Podcast edition. Before we start, if you enjoy the show, consider checking out our coffee page. You can follow the page for free as we have plenty of goodies for all. And if you're feeling generous, a one-off donation will get you access to more treats, or you could become a Merry Writer for just $2 a month. For this, you'll get access to all the items in our shop, including exclusive goodies, and access to monthly bonuses, all while helping to support our podcast. If that's not your style, though, and you still enjoy the show, then please subscribe wherever you're listening if you're not already, and consider dropping us a like on YouTube. So it is episode 250, which is wild because it's a brand new year, and 250 podcast episodes is a lot. So the fact that you guys really enjoy listening to our voices for 250 weeks straight, good for you guys. Thank you. But we also haven't done a Would You Rather in a really long time. So we thought that for this semi-milestone episode, why not do another one? Because we had fun with them back in the day, and I really don't know why we stopped doing them. The last one we did was episode 141, which was apparently December 7th, 2022. So it's been over 2 years, apparently. So I guess we're due for another one. So here's to another milestone episode for the podcast, episode 250. And let's get started in this podcast-related Would You Rather. So, Ari, I shall ask you, would you rather host every episode, including guests, or edit every single episode?
That's actually a really hard question, because every time we have a guest on, even though we are on, 250 episodes, I still get massive spikes of anxiety just before we start. And I don't think my little heart could cope if I had to do that. But at the same time, editing every single episode, I hate editing. It's like the worst job. I'm probably going to say editing. Otherwise, I might just, keel over if I was having to host every guest, because it's just too much.
This is a hard one to answer, actually, because I see what you mean. And this is absolutely in no way, shape, or form offense to any of the guests we've had on the show. We just have massive social anxiety. So whenever we meet with a guest, especially someone who hasn't been on the podcast before, obviously, we both get a lot of anxiety. So when Ari is hosting a guest episode, I feel less anxiety because I'm like, I don't have to worry about the intro. I don't have to worry about giving them the lowdown. I can just sit back and just focus on the conversation at hand. So I see what you mean, that it would be so difficult to host every single episode, including the guests. However, once the recording is done, you're done. You wouldn't have to worry about editing all of that, because some of our guest episodes get pretty lengthy and they're over an hour long. So it's once you finish recording, it's you can wash your hands of it and just let the other host do it. But I think I have to say that I would prefer to edit every single episode as well, because I actually don't mind the editing process. I've learned a lot about it in all these many years of doing a podcast. And there are some weeks where, it's time consuming and you're like, oh, I'm so over it and I'm sick of hearing my voice. But I actually think I would rather edit than host every single episode.
Yeah, I can understand that. And yes, you're right. This is nothing about any of our guests. And I appreciate that sometimes it makes it, you'll, especially if a new guest is on and they've never been on the podcast, we try our hardest to make them feel comfortable, and we try and be very personable, because we are very personable people. But it doesn't mean that when the record button hits and we have to go through our even though we've got a script, we have to go through our script, that we don't have these massive anxiety moments, especially when we mess up, which we seem to do every single time. And it's okay when it's just one of our episodes, but when it's a guest episode, you just get that kind of growing dread. So, oh yeah, let's move on. I don't want to even think about it. Okay. Would you rather record each episode without a script, or only read from a script?
Only read from a script. I think this one is an easy one for me because I am a very visual person and I also have an auditory processing disorder. So if I had to do a one-on-one conversation, or even especially with guests, if we have one or more guests at the same time, it is very difficult for me to follow the conversation without having a script. And I think we've been doing this long enough that we could probably read from a script and make it sound like we're not reading from a script. I'm sure there are some things that would make it sound like we're reading from a script, but for the most part, I think we could change our tone of voice to make it seem like it's more authentic than just reading words on a page. But yeah, to ease my anxiety and also make things easier for me, I would rather record every episode with a script, like just straight script.
I'm gonna go the opposite way because I have a slight reading issue. We do have a script, and it's mainly the intro and the outro, and obviously like questions and some of our notes. But I often go off script with my own notes. I often struggle to read my own notes. I am very I struggle when I flub over words a lot, and sometimes it's like my eyes move too fast and my little brain cannot keep up, and then I'm like, and it just goes a big mess. So having the ability to be a little bit spontaneous, oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? I sound so great when I'm spontaneous. But honestly, reading a script, I would find that too restrictive. I actually like the mix that we have currently of like, yes, we have a script and we have notes, but we get to be spontaneous. So yeah, I would honestly, if I had to choose, I would go without script because I would take twice as long trying to read the script all the way through.
It is funny because you mess up on the intro so many times and it is hilarious. And I think I would miss that. Not gonna lie, I would actually miss that. But that's kind of the beauty of editing. Because regardless of whether we have a script or we don't, we still edit. So whenever we mess up, but I do see what you're saying, because if we had to stick 100% to a script, I mean, you guys been listening to this podcast for a while, you know how much we ramble and get off topic. So I do, yeah, I see what you're saying. It would not be authentic, like in the slightest. But yeah, I could do either or. But yeah, no, for me, it would be easier to read. And I find it funny that for you, it would be easier to just not have that. But anyway, would you rather record longer, more in-depth episodes if someone else was doing all the editing, or shorter, more concise episodes, but you have to do all the editing?
If we're not talking a guest episode, and again, I feel like please note, we are not ragging on our guests. This is all us, and we still love having guests on our episodes. So yeah, please don't like try not to be guests, because we do want guests. That was a nice rambling one. It's kind of answered the question. I would want a longer, in-depth episode because I am a rambler. I tangent off into directions and lose my train of thought. So having the option to do that and not worrying about having to do the editing is brilliant. I mean, we still do that now when we're trying constantly to pull ourselves back and stick to a more concise episodes. I mean, partly for us because we hate editing, and well, I hate editing, and partly for our listeners so I don't have to listen to too much of me rambling. But yeah, I think I would, if I didn't have to worry about editing, I would probably go way more in depth.
I think I have to agree with you on that one. Because we do ramble a lot and we get off on tangents and we get off script and just like off topic. I mean, not necessarily off script, off topic. So I agree. I would rather record longer episodes if somebody else had to do all the editing. And I don't mind editing. I actually don't mind the process, but it does get really time consuming, especially when we have a backlog of episodes that we just didn't realize. And then we're like, uh-oh, I have 6 episodes to edit. Yeah, I think I would rather just let somebody else worry about that. Because the thing is with editing, I mean, for those of you who don't know, when you edit a podcast episode, if the episode is 20 minutes, you're looking at least a good hour of edits. I mean, that's the process. Sometimes it'll be slightly shorter. Sometimes it'll end up being longer. I think we've been doing better at not messing up when we record. So edits have been simpler, I guess. But also it's just time consuming. And there's a lot that goes into edits because you have to keep track of the show notes and all this, that, and the other. So yeah, I think I would, if there was something that I didn't have to worry about, I would rather record the longer episodes and then just let somebody else worry about the editing.
Well, even the fact that we're not in the same room, like a lot of podcasts where it's 2 people or more talking, they're usually in the same location. But because we're not, that means we have different equipment, we have different volumes, and sometimes you have to go and you have to literally normalize the different sound waves, because maybe mine is really loud and Rachel's is really quiet, or mine is really quiet and Rachel's is really loud, and we have to kind of like make them so they sound more cohesive. It's not always easy. And some of our earlier episodes, you'll probably be like, wow, you didn't do that at all. It's like, no, we did. So
we
yeah,
didn't know how to do it.
No.
We've learned over the years, but also we realized that it took us far too long to realize this, that on Zoom, you can record the audio separate. So it's actually easier for us to normalize our voices or sync up our voices and the volume and all that stuff. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And I don't think either one of us realized that when we were like, hey, let's start a podcast. We just dove right into it.
Yeah, we certainly didn't think anything about the technical side. But you know what? I think if we had, we would never have started the damn thing.
That's probably true. That is probably true. I mean, we did overplan. We were planning the podcast for a solid 6 months before we started, but we didn't even really think of the logistics behind the technology. So,
No.
yeah.
It was just like, let's try it. Okay. Next question. Would you rather do live episodes and have sponsors, that way they would help to pay for everything, or non-live / having to edit your own episodes but no sponsors, so we have to keep paying for everything?
Okay, so this one's hard because we're already doing one of those things. I know what it feels like to have non-live edited episodes without any sponsors. But when you say live episodes, you mean you mean like have people like listen in live?
Yeah, like, so if it was now,
we
they
have
would
an
be here
audience.
listening right now when we, if we flub over our words, there's nowhere to fix it. It's like live.
Oh. This is so difficult because like if this podcast, I'm probably overthinking this question, I apologize. If this podcast had like just started, then no, I would rather have a non-live edited episode without any sponsors. But considering we've been doing this for almost 5 years at this point, and we know most of our audience and we've had a lot of guests and stuff, I don't think I would mind having the live episodes. Because it's, especially since it is over Zoom and it's on the computer, I would never do a live episode in front of like an actual live studio audience. That would freak me out. So that's a big no. But if we did it over the computer, I don't think I would mind having people listen in and just listening to us ramble and go off topic and things like that, because we just do it anyway. But I think if I did have to choose one, because that's the nature of Would You Rather, I probably would choose the non-live edited episodes. It would be no work. No, it would be work. It would be more work. And yeah, it kind of stinks not having any sponsors because it is a added cost that, again, I don't think you and I ever thought about when we first started this. We didn't think of the logistics behind the finances of it. But yeah, I think we're doing pretty well so far, knock on wood. So I think I would opt in for that. Non-live edited episodes, no sponsors.
You see, if it's live, see, I'm adding caveats now. If it's live but no video, I think I'd be okay. Mainly, and I say this as I know I said earlier, like my anxiety, but if no one can see me, but I don't have to edit, the amount of hours I would save in my life, like some of the episodes I've had to edit have hit 3 hours. That's a lot to edit an episode that maybe was 40 minutes because there was so much like background noise or something else. And especially if the system goes down while you're editing and you have to start all over again, because for some reason my system does not like to save things no matter what I do. Yes, I appreciate all this is just a technical issue. But yeah, I think I'd be okay. And I think the reason I'd be okay, and I know this sounds almost counterintuitive to what I said earlier, was because we've had so many guests and some of them have come back. And obviously that means those guests hear us when we're rubbish. They hear us when we make mistakes. They hear us when we ask stupid questions. They hear us when we have little mini like arguments. Silly, obviously, it's all friendly, silly arguments and things like that. And because people are okay with us doing that and they enjoy it, or at least they say they enjoy it, I don't think it'd be too bad. But knowing that we wouldn't have to cover all the cost and knowing I wouldn't have to edit ever, I think I'd take it. I think I'd take it just to see how I would do. Although I have to say, at the very beginning of this episode, you made a comment about how, people like to hear us talk and that. Except for that one person who left us a review that said our voices were back.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, There was one person who was like, no, I can't listen to them. It's like, wow. So yeah, there's at least one person who can't listen to us.
But that's okay. It's just one person. And I do see what you mean with the live episodes. I didn't even like consider the video. I wouldn't mind if we had live video, if the cameras were on or off. I don't necessarily mind that. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice to have sponsors, but this is partly why we have a coffee page at coffee.com/the Merry Writer podcast, in case any of you have a couple of spare dollars you want to throw at us. I'm just gonna leave it at that and go into the next thing.
Excellent sneaky plug there. Excellent.
I don't even think they noticed. It was so subtle. But hey, speaking of, the Merry Writer podcast, before we end this little would you rather thingamajig, we picked out some questions from our like really early episodes and thought, let's just do like a quick would you rather with those as well. So from episode 2, oh wow. Would you rather be 100% a planner or 100% a pantser? No in between.
Cancer. Even though I plan now, I plan, but there's a lot of discovery as I write. And I don't want to ever lose that. So if I had to choose, I would rather do pantsing, because I wouldn't like the idea of being a planner where I had to get it all planned or I couldn't do it. So yeah.
As a planner, I would choose pantser. For the exact same reason you just said. I plan stuff, but it's more like a guideline. And then as I write, I discover new things and there's more research that needs to be done. So I have to update that plan along the way. So pantser. I would have to choose pantser as well.
Yeah, it couldn't be that. It's like, oh, well, you have a plan, and once you've got it, that's it. You can't change it. It's like planned forever. No. This is why we're mostly plantsers. I love that word, plantser. Sounds like a plant.
Well, that's the episode. That's episode 2. It's like, are you a planner, pantser, or plantser? So I kind of changed the question and was like, no in between, to make it more would you rather-ish. No in between.
Okay, from episode 12. Wow, these are really old. Would you rather have an author website or only be on social media? I think I know what the answer is going to be.
Author website. Social media sucks. No offense to anybody who just is a diehard Instagram fan or X fan or whatever. But no, I would rather have an author website because there's more creative freedom with that. You can post whatever you want, no matter what the length. You can have multiple pages. You can have buy links. That's hands down author website. It's more costly. I will say that it's more costly, but it's worth it.
But you're paying for control, like you are with a book. If you're paying for like a self-publisher, you're paying for the cover, you're paying for the formatting, you're paying for the marketing, but you have control. So it's the same thing. And I 100% agree. I would rather have an author website, because you can even have an author website that has a shop. That way you could sell your own merch, you could sell your own books directly to your readers. And I'm sorry, social media keeps changing. It's awful. I hate it. Yes, we're both on it, but honestly, it's just, and I get sick of seeing new things like, oh, such and such about is on Threads, you should follow and join. So I'm not joining another frigging social media. I am getting past it. I really am. And honestly, if I read a cool book, the first place I go is the author's website. I never check their social media.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. All good things. And yeah, the only social media we're both on right now is Instagram, I think. I deleted my Twitter long ago, like actually deactivated it. And that's it. Yeah, I think I'm just on Instagram.
I am on Facebook, but I use it because I can schedule Instagram through Facebook. I barely go on and I barely respond to things. I mean, I do put things.
You can schedule directly on Instagram,
I don't like Instagram. Isn't that on the phone though? Because I do all my scheduling on a desktop. I hate phones. See, I'm really showing my age now. I hate phones. I hate the technology of phones. I always have. I was very late to the phone thing because I hate it.
It is very obnoxious to do on the phone.
Yeah, so I can just schedule it on Facebook and throw the same thing onto Facebook as well, so it hits somebody.
But see, I would rather do it on the phone than go through Facebook because I despise Facebook. I still have
Oh
my
yeah.
Facebook, but I can't stand it anymore. And it's just, now we're going on. I mean, speaking of tangents, we're going on a social media tangent now. We'll save that for another episode. So, final question from episode 36. Would you rather only type your books or only handwrite them for every single draft?
That's all I do because I have the worst handwriting, and I don't want to sit there going, what is that? What did I write there? I do that enough already with notes. So, and because I type really fast, the last thing I want to do is sit there handwriting, getting worse and worse as my brain's going, write this, and my hand's like, hey, I'm cramping. So yeah, no, type definitely. Even on a type, I'll even take a typewriter over handwriting.
I concur. My handwriting is awful and my brain is much faster than my writing. So, and it saves you time when you're able to type, and also just in this digital age where everything has to be like emailed to people and stuff like that, like it's already on the computer. So you might as well just start on the computer. Although I give people a lot of credit for those who do handwrite their drafts. More power to you, but just not for me. Alrighty, so thank you for joining us on this random Would You Rather excursion. And thank you again for listening for 250 episodes of the podcast, because holy crap, we've been here for a long time. And because we've been here for a long time, if you want to learn more about us and you haven't been listening for 250 episodes, you can check out our website at themerrywriterpodcast.podbean.com. But we are going to turn it over to you guys now. What are your answers to any of these Would You Rather questions? Assuming that you host a podcast, now that I think about it. But hey, I mean, even if you don't host a podcast, what would you like to do? Let us know your answers in the comments and we'll chat about it. And remember, we release a new episode every Wednesday. Next week, Ari will be interviewing me about my work. And I know you're super excited about that and won't want to miss that. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out. As always, thank you for listening to the Merry Writer Podcast. We'll see you guys next week. This podcast is brought to you by Writing Goals. We set too many. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons